Hey guys, what's going on? It's Simon here and welcome to part 2 of my Jadinko Lair training guide. Now if you didn't see part 1 then I'd really advise checking that out before watching this guide, and that covers basically not only sort of some aspects of the woodcutting inside the Jadinko Lair but mainly the fire making. So the fire making is a really great way to train fire making, really good XP, and it's completely free. But that sort of also covered how to get to the lair, which I'm not going to go through again for the sake of the people that have already watched that. So there'll be a link on screen, so just click that if you haven't seen part 1 already. But on to part 2, I'll head straight inside the lair, and today I'm actually going to be going through the fletching, which is the sort of the third skill that can be trained, and also into some more methods at which you can train woodcutting in here to get some slightly better XP. So straight inside the lair, I'm actually going to go onto the wood cutting first. Now you'll see on my invent I have mutated vines. Now these will come in handy with doing the fletching in just a second. Now there are a few ways that you can get these. One way is you can actually kill the creatures around. Obviously these ones are unaggressive, but as you see the Jadinko males, the Jadinko guards, and the Jadinko babies, which are over here, they're the slayer creatures that can be killed. They will drop these, and you can actually use these in the fletching process. They also drop something called, I think it's called excrescence, and you can use these to make bolas, which are quite profitable. But in terms of fletching XP, they're really, really bad, and so I'm not actually going to be talking about them at all, because you just really wouldn't use these to train fletching with. It's just one of those perks that if you have a slayer task, you might just make them at the end for a little bit of money. So I have some of them in my inventory, and that's because you can actually buy them. The mutated vines are indeed tradable. You can buy them in the GE, and they cost about 20 GP each, maybe a bit less. So they're really not that expensive at all. However, if you don't want to have to buy them, or you actually just want to train woodcutting, then what you can do is you can collect them using the woodcutting skill. So I'm at the Jadinko Queen, which obviously you can't attack. It's not an aggressive familiar, even though it looks pretty formidable. But around her you'll see that there are a number of different roots. Now some of these are mutated and some of these are healthy. At any one time I believe there'll be 3 mutated roots and 6 of the healthy roots. And basically it's important that you do not try and chop the healthy root, partly because you won't get any mutated vines, but also you'll actually get dealt some damage. But don't be concerned if you are, even if you're a skiller, just because the damage you get dealt is very, very minimal, as you'll probably see. So that one's just changed. I'll go ahead and cut a mutated vine, and as you probably expect, the reward you get from that is mutated vines. And you'll see there I got 143 XP, but you will actually get, I think it's 140 XP exactly if you didn't have the lumberjack on. But obviously if you do have it, I highly advise using it, because it does give you that 2.5% bonus, which really does help when you're trying to increase your XP per hour. And of course that's available from the temple trekking activity. So all you need to do is simply watch to see when indeed these roots actually change from blue to green. So the mutated is obviously the blue, and the green is the healthy. And obviously you will get dealt a little bit of damage when they switch, because you'll have a couple of game ticks where you'll attack the healthy root, and you get this message saying as you attack one of the healthy roots surrounding her, the queen bids roots to lash at you, and they basically just whip you, deal you a couple of life points of damage. Now, if you're wondering what kind of XP rates this can give in woodcutting, it's actually pretty decent. You'll probably find that it gives you around about 65 to 70k an hour. Now, that may not seem particularly great, but it's about the same as Ivy. It does require a higher level. It's level 83, as with all the other routes. However, it obviously does gather the resources needed to help you train in this cave. They're not particularly valuable. Obviously, 1,000 of those only cost me about 20k GP, a bit less, and they're pretty slow to gather. However, if it's something that you like to do, be self-sufficient, then that is a viable way to train woodcutting, as it's pretty decent XP. Right, so moving on back over to this area where the curly roots are, which you saw in the last guide, but this time I'm going to be focusing on the straight roots. So if you see the straight roots hanging down, you just want to cut them in exactly the same method. And of course, training fletching here, as with training fire making, of course, you'll still gain woodcutting XP. This is unavoidable. So if you're already 99 woodcutting and not 99 fletching or fire making, then it's a bit unfortunate, because this is a really good way to sort of train skills in parallel, because you get pretty decent XP in both. Now, just a forewarning that training fletching here isn't necessarily the fastest way to train fletching at all. Fletching has the nature of being a buyable skill, that there's always going to be ways that you can basically spend a lot of money to get your levels really fast. However, you just have to appreciate that obviously that does cost a lot of money. Not everybody has bank, and so training here just offers a cheaper alternative to actually train fletching. It's not the greatest XP per hour, and I'll get into XP per hour rates once I show you what to do when you've got a full inventory. It's not the greatest, but it's still pretty reasonable considering what you're actually doing and the cost of it all. So I'm just about to fill up my inventory now. As you see, I've just got a few things at the top, such as a teleport out and just the teleports to get to the lair, should you not know what they are. And you'll see that this the fire pit's actually burning. Now, as I said before in the last episode, obviously this may be put out, and you might actually have to chop a curly root and light the fire. So if you're not 83 fire making, it's going to be very useful to have. Otherwise, you might have to hop to a world where it's already lit. Because what you need to do now is use the straight roots on the fire pit, and you can actually now harden these straight roots. Now you gain 0 XP for doing this, so this may all seem very inefficient, the fact that you're not gaining any XP. So in this situation, if you had curly roots, you'd be getting fire making XP, but at the moment you're not actually gaining any XP at all. And this is what actually reduces the XP per hour when training fletching here compared to fire making. It's not as good as the fire making, but then fletching is often a slower skill. So it takes quite a while to just harden all of these roots, but you'll see that once you've hardened the roots, assuming you've got a knife in your toolkit, you'll have this fletch option. So once I've done the full inventory, I can show you what that will do. Now this actually involves, the whole process involves making these ranged weapons that are called Sagaies, and these are actually going to be quite useful to you if you want to do ranged slayer tasks on these mutated Jadinkos, should you have the slayer level, because they are highly effective on Jadinkos, and they also do sell in the GE for around about 100 each, maybe a little bit less. Sometimes they take a while to sell, but they do generally sell, and you can make yourself a little bit of money doing this method, so you can actually turn a profit doing fletching. So now that I've hardened all of those, you can just simply click fletch, and as with cutting, say, logs into arrow shafts, it will simply just start cutting away, and for every hardened straight root that you have, you'll get 5 arrow shafts, or Sagaie shafts, as they're actually called. And obviously that means because you get, say, 4 roots per you get 4 of the roots per root dangling from the roof that you actually cut. Obviously you're getting 20 per time you woodcut, so you do actually get quite a good number. And often a good way to actually use these is just to build them up. You can build up these Sagaie shafts. So now once I've completely emptied my inventory, I can then actually go cut more and just make loads and loads of Sagaie shafts, and then I can do the fletching at a later time. Because purely making Sagaies, using the mutated vines and the Sagaie shafts, is actually pretty much the second best experience in the game behind dragon darts. But obviously if you have to factor in the time taken to not only cut the roots, but then also like heat them and then make the shafts, then obviously it's going to reduce this XP per hour significantly. So the method is really simple. You use 1 mutated vine per Sagaie shaft, and literally you should use them on each other. And it says there, Sagaie set of 5. It will do them in bunches of 5s, and you'll see you're getting a 200 XP rise for every single one. Now that's every 2 game ticks, so that's basically 100 XP per game tick, which is really fantastic XP. Obviously, and it's only makes them bunches of 10, as with everything. It makes or in sets of 10, so you make 50 a go. But that means it's not necessarily an AFK sort of thing. But once you've got to the point where you've got a number of shafts, you can sort of relax a bit and not pay attention as much. But that's why I said the easiest way to do it really is simply build up a number of Sagaie shafts at once. Maybe get 1,000, and then you can make all 1,000 at once, and then you just have a period where you could just train the fletching, and you get some seriously decent XP. So these are your completed Sagaies. Obviously these are the ranged weapons, and I can show you on the price checker that they cost it's about around 100 each. And so it's not a particularly great amount of money that you can make from this, but it is obviously just a nice little thing where you can have all your fletching supplies, sell them at the end, and get a little bit of cash. So I'm sure you're interested in the XP rates of this. Now, as you're basically doing the exact same method as cutting the curly roots as you do in the fire making, and the XP that you get for cutting them is exactly the same. If I cut one now, you'll see again you get the it's around about 80 XP for the cutting, and then 80 XP again for the collecting. And so it's exactly the same in terms of the woodcutting XP. It's because you unfortunately don't burn any of the roots. I'm using the Inferno Adzi to prove this. When you cut the roots, the curly roots, you have a chance of burning some, and obviously the fact that they're not on your inventory means you can cut more often without having to drop or actually use the shaft. So you're only going to be getting about 20 to 25k woodcutting XP per hour here. But again, say if you were to compare this to ivy cutting or something like that, then it's still going to save you a certain amount of time woodcutting. And so you can factor that in when calculating whether this method is going to be efficient for you. But with the fletching, you'll probably find that you'll actually only get about, I think it's about 100k XP per hour. Now that's not particularly great. It's only sort of on par with maybe cutting yew longbows and strung, or maybe even magics to some extent. So it's not the best XP, but again, it's one of these really cheap methods because your only cost, assuming you choose to buy them, are the mutated vines, and you can sell every single Sagaie for far more than you buy the mutated vine for. So you're actually going to be turning a profit. So if you are really strapped for cash and you have the stats to be able to do this, it's a really viable option to train fletch in this way. Now obviously, even though it's only 100k per hour overall, because you do get that sort of 20 to 25k woodcutting XP, you will obviously then find that you're going to have the case where you've saved a certain amount of time woodcutting that you would have been training, say, at Ivy, probably in the region of about 20 minutes. And so it's really only about 40 minutes of fletching. So you could say it's, if you scale it up, it's about 150k XP an hour, which then makes it far more reasonable, better than the XP per hour, say, of cutting magic longbows and strung, which even doing stuff like that turns quite a heavy loss. So that's pretty much all there is to the fletching of the Sagaes. If you do choose to fletch stuff like the bowlers, they actually give 50 XP per bowler you make, but you can only gather the excrescence, I believe it's called, from killing the Jadinkos, and that's why I didn't cover it, because not everyone has the Slayer requirements as well to kill these, and you have to kill a lot of creatures just to build up some of these tradable items, so it's not anything that you can do viably, and it really is poor XP per hour. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed watching this guide. I know the fire making was a much more effective way to train fire making. This isn't the most efficient way to train fletching, but obviously all the other methods, such as making bolts, darts, or stuff like broad arrows, which are really popular methods, they are very, very expensive, and only the sort of richer players in RuneScape will be able to do this. So if you're one that is strapped for cash, then this could be a useful training method for you. Okay guys, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again tomorrow.